Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of Football Manager Therapy. I am, of course, your host, Tony Jameson, and joining me, as always, is the one and only Rich Owens. Rich, welcome back, buddy. How the devil are you?
Thank you, mate. It's lovely to be back. I am back once again, just like the Renegade Master that they wrote that song about in the 90s. I feel like it's foreshadowing. It's lovely to be back. It really, really is. I've missed you. I've missed this. I've just missed talking into the void. It's nice to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you back, and of course, the eagle-eyed viewers on YouTube will of course no doubt know that you've moved house. Your shirts aren't up yet, and you appear to have lost a mic stand. So it's one of those things. It'll be in transit somewhere. So.
It's kicking around somewhere. I sent you a photo from our local Asda taken at 8:15 a few days ago, realizing that all of our bedding had gone missing in the move as well. So unfortunately, they don't do mic stands. So if you see a bit of waving, it is what it is. We'll adjust. We'll adapt and overcome, because that's who we are as people.
Well, it does speak a lot about your character, though, Rich, because you have been around a place that has a lot of mic stands recently. You were at Abbey Road Studios yesterday, like invited as well, not just turning up on a whim, going for a look around, doing a bit of recording, and you left your mic stands there. Well done.
I know.
Well done.
I know. And I left them all. When we were packing down at the end of the day, and I did say to the guy in the control room, I assume that these are for keeping. He just looked out the window and just shook his head at me really, really disappointedly. So they weren't. I wasn't allowed to take them. I did try. I really did try. We were saying all the way through the day, we should probably just try and take something as a memento. And then we couldn't think of anything. It was car park bollard at best by the end of the day, but we bottled that as well. Cowards.
Car Park Bollard's an excellent band name as well, by the way. So
Isn't it, though?
Probably write that down and use that in the future.
We should have told people that was the name of the band, because you pull up and just instantly American or Australian tourists start asking if you're famous. We just kept saying no. We did promise ourselves that if anybody asked us at any point during the day what we were doing, if we went out the front again, and we were going to say we couldn't tell you. It's just that, we're in the recording studio, and all we can say is that there are two brothers in there that might not necessarily have been in a recording studio together for a few years, and we're just, helping them work a few things out. Nobody asked, so I couldn't start Oasis rumours. It's very upset.
That's what the internet's for, though. Let's tweet that out instead. So there you go. If anyone's interested, Rich has reformed Oasis. So well done, mate. And well, while you've been away, obviously we have to first of all say apology you weren't here last week. Obviously, we had the interview with Work the Space, which was fantastic. We thoroughly enjoyed it. But as I've said multiple times on the stream, I think it would have been great having you in the room as well to have done that. But the bigger news, not the house, not Abbey Road Studios, the thing that keeps us in the video games podcast category, the big news, Football Manager 23 is going to come out. It has got an official release date, and it's the day after FMT Live.
Oh.
What about that?
I know. It's very, very kind of them to respond to our emails and agree to do that. I rate that. Thank you, SI. Thank you, Miles. Thank you, everybody. Really, really good of you. So yeah, if you're coming to FMT Live, bring your laptop. Is all I'm saying. If you want something to do with a hangover in Nottingham on a Tuesday morning, I cannot recommend lying in a Travelodge bed crying, booting up FM23 for the first time. Cannot recommend it highly enough. It's very, very exciting time. Very, very exciting time.
Absolutely. And to be fair, we don't know a great deal about it, obviously. There has been a little teaser video put out. I'm sure by the time this podcast comes out, there may be another video released, or at least there's going to be something this week. I think that's the takeaway that we had from that video, was that it's going to be drip fed over the next couple of weeks. So obviously the next few podcasts, we'll start talking about features that'll drop, things that are obviously being in development. We don't know anything about the game at all. So anything we say is purely conjecture. It's based on just our guesswork and our hopes. What we do know officially is there is a license now from UEFA. So we're going to get branded competitions, including the Champions League. Now, as someone who's never managed in the Champions League for several years, this doesn't really change my experience a lot. But everyone seems to be really, really happy about it. And I'm guessing it's, from what I've seen, and again, I've seen UEFA tweet, it doesn't just seem like it's going to be the names. What do you reckon, Rich? Are we going to get the Champions League anthem, do you think?
Oh, I would like nothing more. I would like nothing more than the Champions League anthem in Football Manager. It would just stop me having to hum it in my own head whenever you make it into European competitions. I think just the addition of branded European football at that level is a huge get. It's big, and as you say, it took. Shout out friend of the podcast, the Mad Scientist. It took him creating a database based 30 years in the future for me to even get a sniff at European football this year. So during the FM22 cycle. So, you never know what may happen in FM23. We may viewers get good at the game. Imagine Tony and I succeeding with saves. It would be new territory for the two of us, but I think we might have it in it. We won't. Let's not pretend. Let's not pretend. We're not going to be those guys. But just the fact that it's in there at all is very, very exciting. It's I think it opens up a lot of doors in terms of content creation possibilities. I think it almost adds a little bit something special about if you're somebody who enjoys like a journeyman save, or if you're somebody who enjoys like a rebuilds. If you're pushing for European competition, it just adds that little bit of extra something, doesn't it? When you get to the main stage in Europe, for there to be the proper branding, and as you say, the possibility of getting to walk out, seeing your boys walk out to that iconic song, that would be a bit special, wouldn't it?
And I'd imagine, and again, this is me just purely guessing at this point, that you will have additional animations based around those European night fixtures where you'll come out and you'll have the UEFA, the Champions League hoarding over the tunnel. You'll maybe have like the on the pitch boards, and I mean the idea at the end though, to have you lifting the actual trophy. I mean that's great. As you said, the amount of effort it takes to get to a Champions League or a Europa League, Europa or European Conference or whatever, to get to that point, and then to actually just see just a generic staging, and then the fireworks, and then just a generic cup, which you see like even in draft mode, for example, like it adds something more when you see that actual trophy. And I think that for Football Manager, what it shows is it legitimizes again just how serious these guys are taken in the world of football, where UEFA have said, you know what, yeah, let's put our name to this. It's not going to reflect badly on us at all. It's going to be a positive thing, and it's just another step with Football Manager and real football working together and coexisting, especially when you look at some of the clubs that obviously back out for commercial reasons to see the Champions League. So sort of go, we're all right with this. You sort of go, oh, all right, Zebra, what are you saying?
And I think another exciting thing is that, having the actual official branding is, I think it's going to draw a lot of new eyes to the game as well. When you see, as you've touched on there, when you see things like, somebody lifting a trophy after a cup final, and it's this, as you say, it's the same animation, it's the same backdrop, regardless of whether it's, the Champions League or, in my opinion, the far more reputable trophy, the Papa John's, because I know which one I'd rather win during a save. Who doesn't love the pizza?
The greatest trophy.
The great, some might say the greatest trophy, the pinnacle of the sport. Just having the option, just little screen grabs of things like that, it's going to bring more eyes and more interest to the game. New faces to the community, which is always a wonderful thing. I think it's got the potential to do a lot of good commercially for the game as well, which is, again, exciting to see. Because, when it comes to Football Manager, the more the merrier.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you get your casual gamers playing FIFA, they obviously do have those branded licenses, those branded kits, those branded club names, tournaments in there as well. And as you say, if you are getting people now can jump onto Football Manager, partake in the Champions League, and not even have to download an additional pack for the logos for the tournaments or for the trophies. It just makes things a bit easier, you know what I mean? Like, and it is. It's just, it makes it another complete package, and hopefully we are moving towards that step where there is more brand sort of crossover as we're going through. So of course that will potentially expand in the future. Now, things of course that we might want to speculate about, things that we would be looking forward to in FM 23, I should say. Sorry, Rich, I'm going to put you on the spot. Give me something that if you could have a one-to-one now, Miles, and you were going, right, this is my feature, this is what I really want out of the next game, what would you be hoping for? What are you looking for in FM23?
It's an interesting one because I've seen, you know, some of the guys in the community, they've been putting polls up on places like Twitter asking, you know, what people are kind of hoping for. I think I've seen people like, you know, a friend of the podcast, Dr. Benji's been doing a little bit of it. For me, I think because of the way that I play the game and the way that I enjoy the game, and I know that former podcast host Matt will probably vastly disagree with me, as somebody who enjoys the 3D match engine, I think if they were to come out next week and say, look, we've spent a lot of time in the last year really investing in developing and improving the 3D match engine, because it's still not quite there. It's still not. I think there's room for improvement, especially when you kind of contrast and compare to the effectiveness of like the 2D match engine. I think people like Fox in the Box have done bits and pieces where they've done, you know, screenshots, they've done, you know, they've done, you know, clips side by side of the same moment in the game, and it's just slight variations in player positioning. For me, if they were to announce, as I say, match engine improvements, I would be very, very happy. Don't get me when we saw things like new animations, when you can actually see players doing things like dropping the shoulder now, that's brilliant. I'm all for that, but I think it's maybe less flashiness and maybe just a little bit more functionality for me this year with the match engine. If they can work out some of the kinks with that, I would be delighted, especially from a content point of view, delighted.
Yeah, I think the graphics debate is always going to be one that comes around, because I mean, this game, I suppose, really, like for me, I mean, I'm an OG. I grew up on the game when it was just text and a picture of Dalian Atkinson in the background. Like, you know, like I didn't need, everything was all in our heads as to what was going on. We visualized it all. That even Sensible Soccer seemed like broadcast quality compared to what we were looking at, like with just, you know, a sentence teletext going on the bottom. And then when we got the 2D match engine, it was like drafts, like, wow, okay, cool, this is great, like, you know. And then the idea of 3D, that's, I mean, that blew my mind. Like, and you're right. I mean, like, you know, you look at sort of a game like FIFA, which you accept is a console-based game, so it's sold on its graphical style straight away, and it is for the eyes. Clearly, that's what attracts people in. It shows off the power of that console. Football Manager, I think, always, for me, sells itself on the fact that it is this universe that you create, and it's the stories that you create of your own accord. It's the depth. It's not about the graphics. It's about what's underneath the hood. But unfortunately, I am going to come back around, and I'm going to join you on this one. I think we're in 2022 now, 2023, very close. The graphics do need an upgrade. Like, I used to play a lot on a Mac laptop, MacBook Pro. It would chug on, you know, it would handle the 3D match engine, but it would chug. Like, so I ditched all that to start streaming. We've now got a rig, and I understand, you know, that not everyone, of course, we're in a cost of living crisis as well. Not everyone's got access to high end kit. But you look at something that's just come out recently in F1 Manager, the graphics on that are ridiculous, really. And you would argue that it's the same element of style game. It's management. It's a lot going on under the hood. There's a lot of analytics and spreadsheets and data to crunch through. And of course, you again create all those stories yourself. You don't control the game. Of course, you're watching the game like you are a Football Manager. We mentioned it with Work the Space in the previous episode. That Football Manager have got to be sat there looking at this going, yeah, we need to up our game now, because it looks light years ahead from what we've got on FM, and even things like the pitches don't quite look right now, and I guess the more time we spend on the game watching it on screen and then watching content on it, does look a little bit dated, I must admit.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because you've hit the nail on the head. The reason that most people play Football Manager is because you're creating your own stories. It's not necessary. The visual presentation of the actual match itself is second nature to everything you've done in the build up to that match. 99% of the time, it's creating those stories. It's creating that narrative. It's those relationships with fictional players that you create in your head that power you through in your 30th or 40th season with a club. But at the same time, it'd be a bit nicer if it just looked a little bit nicer. And hopefully, I think the popularity of games like F1 Manager are going to be a bit of potentially give them a bit of a nudge in the right direction. As I say, fingers crossed. And until we get the full game launch, we just don't know. But we can speculate. But I think it's something that if they've spent a bit of time on over the last year, I think a lot of people would be quite happy with that.
I think, yeah, especially given as well the rise, particularly obviously since the pandemic, the rise of content that's being made now. Like it's almost in SI's best interests for the game to look as good as it can, because there now is more eyes on the product. Like, we will still have a huge number of people just playing on at home, and that's what they'll do. They'll play their own save and that's it, and they'll not engage with content. They'll not see it. So although it's big, it's still not the full representation of the FM community. But it's certainly a lot bigger in the last couple of years than it has been, and it seems to be getting steadily bigger again. So I think now we are getting into a generation of gamers who will now look upon those graphics, and particularly younger gamers coming in as well. They are very graphic driven, and it will sort of be a thing where they might want something else, maybe like an FM Lite or something. Possibly they could maybe bring out a sort of a version that's going to work with sort of weaker computers. And I know that they don't want to alienate customers who've been with the game for years and years and years, which is 100% admirable, by the way. I love that. But of course, there has to become a time when eventually they do have to say, look, sorry, but to play this new one, you're gonna have to, to get rid of that, 25-year-old laptop. It's gonna have to go. And when that happens, I don't know, and who agrees that and who signs that off, I don't know, and I don't know how they do it. For me, I think the thing that I've been clamoring for since about 3 years ago, I think, for something that I want in FM23. I wanted an FM20, I wanted an FM19, FM18. I want, and I still don't think it'll be in, I want a set piece creator, a proper set piece creator, where you can do your runs, you can do your zones, you can do your fakes, you can work out exactly where the delivery is going to go, how the delivery is going to go. Like I want to be able to decide whether I'm going to float the ball to the back post or whether I'm going to whip a ball low and hope that someone's going to step over it and maybe get a deflection off a defender, because that's the whole point. It's misdirection. I want to have control over that, because set pieces are so important, particularly in draft mode. Imagine being sat there and knowing that is the way to unlock something. So many hours spent on this game working on tactics. Set pieces, I think, can just letting it down a little bit, where you can have this amazing tactic, but second something happens and it's going, right, here's a free kick, here's a corner, you're like, it's goal. Doesn't really matter what I've got here. He's got better jumping reach than my player's got better jumping reach. It's a goal. Like, doesn't seem fair, really.
No, absolutely. I think especially in a PvP context as well, because you can spend so much time getting the formation right, getting the tactics right, down to the individual player role and the individual player instructions of how precisely you want that team to play. And then when it comes to your set pieces, you're like, probably near post corners again. Is it, lads? Let's get the big lad on the near post, and it will probably be okay. and they'll probably score, especially if you've drafted Van Dijk, pretty much guaranteed at that point. So yeah, a proper set piece creator, because again, you find some wonderful clips out there online of sensationally good and also sensationally bad set pieces from around the world of football. The opportunity, because you can do so much with FM and it's so in depth and it offers you, just opens up such a world to you in terms of how you want to operate and run a football club. That seems like the next obvious kind of, under the hood feature, shall we say, rather than the razzle dazzle on the eyes, match engine wise. It seems like it's something that the game has been missing for quite a few years, because again, it wasn't that long ago that in terms of player instructions, you could drag a little yellow, you had a little yellow arrow that you could drag around. So maybe drag the wide players inside, or this is how we're going to push the fullbacks up, and they'll just obey the yellow arrow. The yellow arrow is God. And now when you look at it, fast forward just even 10 years, the level of depth there is staggering compared to it. So why not give us the option to sort out our set pieces properly, go in depth on that, because that would be a fantastic feature. And like you say, in terms of PvP, I think it would just open that up exponentially. So if we get that, or even some kind of semblance of it, I'd be delighted, absolutely delighted.
I mean, imagine the scenes, right? Champions League final, officially branded, right? You're grinding out this match. It's 0-0, okay? 85 minutes, you get a set piece that you've spent time curating. The set piece comes off on the biggest stage in club football. You win that trophy. You get the actual trophy to hold up. Imagine that feeling. Imagine that's what decides a streamer showdown or an FM playoffs. Like, that would be like, that just takes it to another level, doesn't it? It goes from, it's going to be a goal because it's at this exact angle, to, like, great, excellent. I want to see those YouTube videos of here's my set piece. And yeah. Give me that, please. Also on that as well, another thing that I would like to see is, I'd like to see, and this was something that Ian McIntosh had said, and I saw him tweet, and I was like, I like this actually. I like this. A bit of visual representation of your training. So being able to watch training, being able to see physical improvements, be able to look at players and identify what you're trying to do. Again, that would work really well with the set piece creator. Or it would also be a way of practicing whether your tactic works or not. You could sort of have drills set to sort of go, right, we need to press high. You might see players maybe not responding properly. You might say, right, I want to get players to whip the ball in from out wide. Your delivery might not be great. You might want your keeper to work on distribution. You can see that they're not very good at it. Some people might not want to see it, but again, it opens up another branch of stuff to look at, and certain people would love to see that.
100%. Because again, it's when you look at features in the game, like you will always be able to see your team's tactical familiarity. You can, I think it's 3 different tactics you can have loaded with your team at any one time that they can train in rotation. But then again, sometimes you'll see that condescending information. They'll say high tactical familiarity, like the lads are well drilled, they know exactly what to do. But then when you get to the match day screen, you'll see, actually 17 of the 17 players in the team are a little bit concerned this tactic leaves us a little bit open at the back. Why? Because apparently you're very, very familiar with the tactic. And if you're familiar with it, you should understand what we're trying to achieve. So being able to actually see that play out at the training ground, maybe that starts to unlock a little bit of the whys instead of the hows. So again, a little more in-depth training. Absolutely, an actual visual representation of what you're setting up, because it won't surprise anybody to know that, just like Tony, I would never try and set up training. It would be like Father Dougal being left alone to do a funeral in Father Ted. Like there'd be a hearse on fire. Like it'd be absolute nightmare. Absolute nightmare. Like there's 3 broken legs and they've only just come out the dressing room. So let the layman like me be able to physically see what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. So that would be a fantastic feature if that's something they've managed to get implemented in the last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else that you think off the top of your head that you quite fancy?
I mean, as I say, the biggest one for me was the match engine. Training was something else that's kind of been on my radar for a little while as well. I'm expecting to see tweaks to things like the data hub as well, because obviously that's been a big kind of induction recently. So I'm expecting to see little bits and pieces on there as well, because it's again just the opportunity to maybe dive a little bit deeper into things, and then almost like better data analysts, they can say, right, this is where we're struggling, which will then transition to this is what we would recommend working on the training ground, and they can say these players specifically need to improve in these areas, and then you can monitor that progress visually rather than via just the occasional little kind of upward or downward pointing arrow on some training or scouting reports. So it all kind of it all ties into itself. That would again for me, I'm expecting changes that directly affect other parts of the game, but yeah, I'm expecting things to happen in the data hub that would maybe be able to transition more effectively to other areas of the game. That would be nice.
That would be great as well, especially considering we've seen the rise of people doing Moneyball saves, and even on Twitch. I signed a player via stats the other day. Genuinely, I used statistical data to find a player, and it worked perfectly. So you're right. Maybe if someone like me can use it, then who knows what a person who knows what they're doing can do. Another thing that I think would be quite interesting to improve, and you touched upon it there, is scout reports. So I would tie that in with the recruitment meeting. Now, I liked the recruitment meeting at first in FM22 because it was novel, and I was like, oh, that's quite a good idea. But then when the meeting was essentially going, right, boss, I've worked out which areas we need to improve, and I'm like, going, excellent, cool, who have you got for me? And they all, with every single one of them to a T, would go, don't know, boss, don't know. Like, we need a right back. Yeah, we do. Yeah. Who have you seen? No one. Not even started looking. Why are we having this meeting then? Don't know. Here's a list of players. Yeah, what do you know about them? Not a thing. Not a thing. Come on. There should be. If that's the situation, there should be a fire instantly button.
There should. There absolutely should.
Have some sort of trapdoor in your office, like in Monty Burns and The Simpsons. just move backwards a little bit. Press the button.
Just step to the left, please. Release the hounds. Everything. Yeah, that's the recruitment meetings as well. It's I think I find, especially with a lot of kind of the European saves, or kind of going into like South America, and I know we're going to be touching upon it later on, especially in the Scandinavian challenge as well. The amount of time scouts would just like recommend, like, tell you what, we need a striker. Now I've found a striker. He's great. He's exactly what we're looking for. He's the right age. Financially, it makes sense, but he's not interested. He doesn't want to come and play here, but he's really good. But he will never come and play here. Just to reiterate, he will never come and play here under any circumstances. But look at that heading. That doesn't help, because I can make a list of players that don't want to play for me. Like that's not useful. That's not useful at all. Give me options. Give me viable options, please. That's all I want. That's all I want.
And if I am going to make a list of players who don't want to play for me, at least one of us is doing our job around here. So, the issue as well with the scouting is like you've mentioned there, like you manage. I do predominantly lower leagues. Scandinavia, of course, we've done. They go, I tell you who's really good, Lionel Messi. You go, oh, is he? No, like that's fantastic. Is there any other players that you've heard of? Oh, I've heard of. Have you heard of Mbappe? He's handy, isn't he? He's great. Can he play right back? No.
Exactly.
Is he interested in coming to York on 400 quid a week? No, he earns 400 grand at Paris Saint-Germain.
Exactly. It's almost the in-game version of the signed Pulisic guy, isn't it? It's like, yeah, just try and sign him. Just try and sign. He's really good. Just try and sign him. It's not going to work, but you should try. You should absolutely try.
They should implement that. They should just like as a little sort of a little Easter egg, just every other recruitment meeting. Just Christian Pulisic.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
I'm managing in Indonesia. He's never going to go.
Like when you boot up the game on April the 1st.
He'd be great. He would be.
Yeah, he would be great. He'd be wonderful. He's the LeBron James of soccer, Tony. Of course, he'd be great. But yeah, it's like that. Yeah, it's the April the 1st bug, isn't it? Or Easter egg, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna give you £700 million to. No, what day of the week is it? You silly rascal. Yeah, just that, but with Big Christian. Delightful.
Or the other Easter egg could be on April the 1st, your recruitment meeting is full of actually populated scouting data. And you go, you weren't expecting that, were you? Yeah, you bastards.
I've done my job. Look at me go. Yeah. There's no need.
Only 3 people in the FM community have seen that Easter egg going, did you get the Easter egg bug where the scouts tell it with data? No. Have you seen that?
Everyone just instantly dismisses it. Like, nah, it's too good to be true. None of these players are real. If I click on one of these players, the game's just going to laugh at me. Yeah. Get a phone call from Miles and he just laughs down the phone at you for 5 minutes. Yeah, exactly.
We should say as well, by the way, if you are still unsure about whether you're going to be purchasing FM23, we've got a link. We've got a link in the we put in the description where you can pre-order the game with a little sort of coupon as well. So it gets you for £32.05, which I understand is much cheaper than Steam. So go and hit that link there. You do also get the beta access as well. So you do get guaranteed beta access. So you will get it straight away. It's only for the PC and Mac version, though. It's not for the PS5 or the mobile, because of course it is coming out on various other platforms as well, which is fantastic. Again, we don't know a great deal about it, so we can't really talk about that at the minute. We could talk a little bit though about, before we go into FM22, any plans, Rich? Any FM23 plans on the horizon? Have you got your beta save locked down? Have we talked about this before? I know we've talked about it a lot offline. I can't remember if we've talked about it on the pod or not, but
no, we've not talked about it on pod. But yeah, beta save is officially locked down now. I've made the choice, just mostly due to a really exciting transfer window for me. I'm off to France. I'm going to Nice. I'm gonna have a nice bit of time abroad.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, I think just it's the Aaron Ramsey thing, isn't it? Like Aaron Ramsey, Kasper Schmeichel's there, Nicolas Pepe. Like it just looks like a fun team to spend a season or two with before the main game drops. People that have watched my streams before will know I do enjoy managing in France. So why not? Why not? I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun trying to get the best out of. It's again on paper. It's just a fun squad, and it's not saying I'd probably want to carry on into the main game, but to get used to the game with, quite a fun experience.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that. I think it's quite decent, to be honest. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how you go on with Nice. For myself, I'm going to go. I'm staying a bit more local. I am going to do the Arsenal, the actual Arsenal. Of course, historically, I've been working with the other Arsenal way back in the day. But yeah, I've decided to do all or nothing, but rebranding it just generally nothing. Nothing with Arsenal is what I was going to do for the beta. Nothing at all. It's going to be a year, possibly 2 seasons of me trying not to get sacked with the best players I will ever manage on this game. And going, have you heard of 4-4-2 counter-attack? Now, what we're going to do, we're going to play a low block, and Gabriel Jesus, can you be taller at any point?
I'd like, is that a new feature this year? Can we make you big? Gabriel Jesus sounds too exotic. You're now Gary Jones, okay? And you play centre forward. Now who's big? Who's
a lovely short back and sides?
Yeah, exactly. Shave those sideburns off. Who's big that we can stand you next to up front? That's what we need. Is Niall Quinn available? Can we get Niall in?
Yeah. Now, I know he's just moved to Huddersfield, but here's Kyle Hudlin. This will be your strike partner. You could learn a lot from him, Gabriel. Look how much he grew. He grew all the way up to the top.
Exactly.
You only stopped about here.
Yeah, he carried on because he wanted it more, Gabriel. He wanted it more. Exactly. I'm very, very excited to. I'm very excited to watch you at Arsenal. I think it's going to be great. Just the combination of, as you say, good players, players with attributes. You're going to be looking at players like they've got at least 6 attributes that are in double figures. This is ridiculous. How do we cope? I think it's going to be great. I'm massively looking forward to it. It's doubly good as well, but just because of how well they've started the season in real life as well. Just contrasting and comparing with that. That's going to be an experience in and of itself.
Like, if you thought Sampdoria was carnage, this is going to be worse. And it's not even going to have a Europop backdrop like the Sampdoria beta save did.
The only thing that upset me about that Sampdoria save was the fact that I was already married when it started, because that song probably would have been my first dance. It will live on forever in my heart.
I think it's been several people's first dances since that moment, so it's so it is quite interesting. We're not going to reveal our full FM23 plans just yet. We'll announce that in a future podcast. But again, do let us know what your beta saves plans are going to be, because that should theoretically drop a couple of weeks before the release. So you've got a couple of weeks still to plan those out. So let us know what you're thinking in terms of your own beta saves, and if you've already planned out your main save as well, let us know that. Also, I did actually pass on Boom Boom Cagliarella recently via a conversation in PvP. Look at that, Rich. There's a link. Right, we're going to talk. We've done a bit of PvP in this in recent times. Myself and Rich, we were going to talk about it last week, unfortunately, but it didn't quite land at the right time. But yeah, Rich has been in the path to the playoffs. And I've been doing a bit of PvPing myself in FM Top Manager. Now, Rich, will come to you first, and then we'll finish off with my tales as we go. How did you find the path to the playoffs?
I found it to be quite a learning curve. I think that's probably the best way to put it. It was a very, very surreal experience, having spent a lot of time sat next to yourself and other wonderful people from the community on the panels especially for the path of the playoffs and drafts and crafts and all the other wonderful things that go alongside it. It's been a very, very long time since I was on the other side of the competition, actually taking part. But talked about it during the competition itself. Last time I played in the playoffs was when I tagged in for Tony at short notice, I think during FM21. And that was a baptism of fire straight away. So actually being able to sit down and do it myself from the draft to actually playing the games themselves, it was a wonderful experience, but it was, a bit of a learning curve. I mean, the drafting went really well. I was delighted with the draft. I think going back, I don't think I'd have changed a single thing in terms of the draft itself. I think I had a good squad. I think it was third favourite on paper according to the simulations, which was very exciting. But you can sit there and you can think about your tactics, and you can look at the team you've drafted, and you can talk it all up in your head as much as you want, but it doesn't matter. Come game week 1, when the first game kicks off, all of that kind of planning and not necessarily the planning, but the kind of talking yourself into certain scenarios just goes out the window, because suddenly you're in a proper PvP game. And mine was, of course, the wonderful RDF tactics, which was seeing the tweet with the game week 1 fixtures on it. Just it made my heart sink a little bit, because at that point I talked myself into the fact that I could potentially, if I get off to a decent start, I could potentially give a good account of myself. And then it's like, yeah, Rich is playing RDF week 1, and I was like, shit. It just felt like when you see those, start the season, you see the game week 1 fixtures, and they've put the newly promoted team up against one of the big boys. That's how it felt, because like we're guaranteed this will go first on match of the day this week, because there'll be goals. There'll be goals, and there'll be at least one manager crying. So that was not on paper the ideal start for me. The game itself, Tony, and it's not often I'll ever get to say this, and I'm glad I can say it in this format, in this context, because it will in theory live on forever. I should have battered RDF. The fact that we played, it finished 2-2. It finished 2-2, and I was angry that it finished 2-2, because I should have won that game 6, maybe 7-2. However, it was all over him, absolutely all over him. And I think we were both as surprised at each other, because, you know, we stayed in the call together for the entire game. And I think, you know, it's RDF tactics. The man knows ball. The man knows tactics. The man knows FM. And the fact that he was struggling was, I think, surprising him. And the fact that I wasn't was definitely surprising me. I wasn't prepared. But then, you know, by the end of the game, I'm sat there like, how have I not won this? How have I not won? It should have been a comfortable win. The end of the game stats were all in my favour. Just the highlights were all going my way. Just couldn't get it over the line, and that disappointingly, I think, set the tone for me for the rest of the tournament, because I just couldn't get games over the line. You know, a disappointing 2-2 draw against RDF, a 2-2 draw against Alice that I was actually delighted with, because she was in control for most of the game. Big shout out to Alice, FM girl, playoff royalty. I hope she smashes it. The new lads, you know, there were a lot of people like me in the tournament that hadn't taken part before, or a bit rusty PvP wise. You know, getting to play guys like AJ, who just dominated the entire thing. Like, I think he's going to give a great account of himself once the actual tournament comes around. Dropping points against the lads that I was like, well, if I'm going to qualify, these are the people I'm going to need to be picking up points against, because they're the other unknown quantities. They're the guys that I could be in with a shout against. Getting taken apart by them, getting dominated by people like, you know, guys like McKinn's, who, you know, there's no shame there. McKinn's is a showdown winner. So, you know, if you're going to lose in PvP to somebody, it might as well be to somebody who's won the showdown. And then, yeah, we kind of trickled over the line. I feel like we trickled over the line. We the last game we played against Wickdiv, against Abby, again, who's qualified, and I'm delighted for. Beat her 4-1 after having a couple of tactical breakdowns, and then just plugging in a tried and tested horrible 4-2-3-1 that I've used in certain saves that I know works fairly well. Took her apart with that, and then it was mixed emotions, because I wanted Abby to qualify. I really want to see her in the actual playoffs. But because results going the way they were, and the way the table was set up going into the last game, there were a lot of people that could have done. And I was like, if I win this game and results go other ways, then Abby's out. So it was... I almost felt bad towards the end of the game, because I was out regardless. There was no result that could have gone my way that saw me through. But knowing that she made it through come the end of the tournament was kind of, you know, that made it feel a little bit better. I did realise afterwards, I think somebody in the chat pointed out, and when I looked at the table afterwards, the irony being, if I had got off to that better start against RDF, if I'd picked up 3 points there instead of 1, head-to-head and goal differences and everything else would have gone in my favour, and I'd have finished 4th in the group, and I'd have qualified for the actual playoffs. So it did all, in the end, it all came back to that one game. But it's a hell of an experience. If there's anybody out there, if there's anybody who's watching this that is, you know, that plays FM, has played a bit of PvP, who streams, who wants to get involved, I would wholeheartedly recommend just getting in touch with people like Mozza, getting in touch with people like Ali, registering your interest, getting on the radars, because it's just such a wonderful experience. I think regardless of whether I qualified or not, I just had a lovely evening. I got to spend time talking to people from the community that I either haven't spoken to at all, or people that I don't speak to enough. And that in and of itself is a wonderful experience, because the FM community, we've waxed lyrical about the community numerous times on this podcast, and will continue to do so, because by and large, it's a fantastic community full of really, really nice people. So getting to spend the evening chatting with people I like about a game that I'm ambivalent towards was lovely. Really, really, really nice. So can't put a price on that.
Yeah. And it should be said as well. That there was, of course, the usual FM playoffs drama. Debutant a few miles away. Shout out to Deloney, by the way, the silky smooth voice, and
voice,
sharp dresser as well. He was in that fourth spot. He was in that fourth spot until 10 minutes to the end of the McKinn's game. RDF must have sat with 11 men on the line. He was defending so deep. McKinn's finally broke through. He needed to win by 3 clear goals. He won by 3 clear goals, and that put Deloney a few miles away out, and McKinn's qualified. So that was the sort of moments that we live for in Football Manager, and particularly on PvP. So yeah, and I think that actually was a fantastic advert again. The path to the playoffs. Obviously, there's going to be the second path to the playoffs the week that this podcast drops, and then the playoffs is 2 weeks after. So again, do keep your eyes peeled for those dates. Myself, I must admit, I've had a bit of a mixed bag over the past couple of weeks. We did FM Top Manager. First time I've ever been in that tournament. So shout out to the guys for running that. It was a very, very well-run tournament. It's a 4 qualifier, so 4 little groups of 4. Winners of the groups go into the final, and then, of course, the top seeded second place goes into the final as well with the previous winner. So long story short, I won my group, okay? Which is a shock in itself. I also broke records at this point because I was the only person in FM Top Manager history who went through the groups unbeaten. Nobody's done that before. So I won all of my games bar 1. I drew one of my games, and it's like 6 games I think it is in total. So I won 5, drew 1. So that's not been done before. So I was like, all right, cool. Like I had a good time. My draft was good. My performances were great. I was really, really happy with that. I was like, cool, okay, we'll go into the tournament. A little bit of pressure, obviously, on me at that point there, going in unbeaten. I think Peter was sort of looking, going, right, he's the guy that needs to be taken down, which makes sense. You got that target on your back. There's some good competitors in the final as well. First match, I go in there playing Bargy, who's the current champ. I beat him. I'm like, oh, okay, this is going all right. I'll take this. Then we played Grimmy. We lost 1-0, and it was such a grinder match that, like, it was a well-worked 1-0 win for Grimmy. Like, we both had a goal disallowed, so, like, you sort of go, fair enough, whatever. No problem at all. It'll be fine. Then I lost 7-0. Like, I got absolutely annihilated, which, again, was a new piece of FM Top Manager history, the biggest defeat in FM Top Manager history. 7-0. I got torn apart by bullions. Literally, I just stood and I was sitting looking at it going, I don't know what the hell's gone on here. And I was like, this is going back to old school Tony this, where like we're not very good at PvP. And Alistair was on comms. He said something beautiful on the comms, waiting for the next game, because I was coming up against Salmon, who actually went on to win it. I had to play him next, and I was saying, Ali, is this defeat going to get in Tony's head? And Ali's wonderful words were, Tony will have found that funny. He would have loved that more than winning. So he's going to go on and win the next game. And I did. I won the next game, like 3-0 or something. So I beat the guy who won. I beat the guy who came second. I lost the final match as well. So I finished 4th, I think, out of the 5. It was a great tournament. I really enjoyed it. So shout out, of course, to the FM Top Manager crew for getting me in. Again, if you're interested in PvP, I would absolutely recommend going and getting involved and giving them a shout. We also had one more. We've been doing Draft Club throughout the month. I'm just going to have a quick bit of water. We've been in Draft Club during the month as well. And at the time of recording, I'm in the semi-finals, mate.
Oh.
I'm in the semi-finals. So 1 win away from a shot at the big time. So yeah, old Tony being bad at PvP, I think it's maybe a myth, to be honest.
I think that ship has sailed.
That illusion at this point. So
absolutely, mate. I think that the Tony being rotten at PvP ship is just a dot on the horizon now. You know, it's just a compelling story of success. If you take the 7-0 loss out of it, it's great. It's absolutely great. It's I'm excited to see you carry on, and I'm expecting trophies. I'm expecting trophies in the not too distant future in the Jameson household. because it's because why not? Because why not?
100%. I think I deserve that. And you know what? We all deserve it, to be honest. So, again, that's something that's going to end the FM22 cycle, I think, though. So let's look forward to FM23 and a bit more success going forward. We were going to talk about Scandinavia. I think we'll probably talk about it on the next podcast, because it gives us a little bit of time just to finish that challenge up. We are wrapping up our FM22 monthly Discord challenge. It will run until essentially the end of the FM22 cycle now. It seems foolish to say, here's another monthly challenge for 1 month. If you haven't taken part and you want a little challenge before the game cycle finishes, try and win the Scandinavian Triple Crown. You start in Norway with odds. You either have to win the Norwegian League with odds, or, of course, move on, win the Norwegian League. Then you move to Sweden. You've got to win the top division in Sweden. Then you move to Denmark, and you've got to win the top division in Denmark. It's not as easy as it sounds, but we'll have a little update on that in the next episode. And of course, we also do need to plug that there's FMT Live happening the 7th of November, the day before FM23 comes out, in the Canal House at Nottingham Comedy Festival. Tickets are selling. We got an update of ticket sales this week. Genuinely, thank you to everyone who's bought tickets. It's going to be a great night. The show's going to be recorded. We're going to potentially do it as a Patreon live stream. Sign up for Patreon, patreon.com/FMT pod. It will not go out in general consumption straight away, if at all. After the recording, we will have a bit of an FM meetup. So have a few drinks, a few bits of chat, some coffees and stuff. And some people will undoubtedly run back to their hotel rooms and get those laptops loaded up. But it should be a fantastic evening. Do, of course, get your tickets. The links are in the description. Rich, it's time to plug yourself, mate. Where can people find you at the end of the cycle? And, of course, going forward when you're set foot on your journey to Nice?
Absolutely, mate. So you can find me on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/RichOwensFM. High quality FM content on the regs. Please come and hang out. We have a lovely old time. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's @RichOwensFM on Twitter as well, where there will be mostly talking about FM, occasionally jokes, but mostly FM. So come hang out on either of those platforms. We have a lovely old time. Tony, tell the people where they're finding you.
Thank you very much, mate. You can find me at Twitter, which is @Tony Jameson, and of course Twitch is Tony Jameson FM. We will also be doing some bits and pieces on YouTube as well, which is Tony Jameson FM, and we're also going to be building a second channel. If you missed the Twitch live streams, or if you don't do Twitch, we have a second channel built up, TJFM Live, which is going to be all the Twitch streams pulled across, and you can watch them in their full unedited glory if you ever get a couple of hours to sit and have a look at that. So again, links are all below. As we say, it's FMT pod on Twitter, and of course the Patreon link is patreon.com/FMT pod, and we are on YouTube. Just search Football Manager Therapy and you will find us there. So this has been fun. It's not long now. FM23 is coming and we can't wait. As always, appreciate you listening. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and we'll see you soon on another episode of Football Manager Therapy.